All right. And again, sorry everybody for the confusion. Welcome back everybody to conversation number 98. Really sorry for the hassle this time. We were having issues with our Zoom link not mapping correctly. We had to change it last minute, literally 4 minutes before the call. So sorry for those of you that are hopping in late and the fact that we're starting late. Hopefully we'll get it all fixed. And some of the folks that are just joining, sorry about that. As always, I want to start by thanking our wonderful sponsors. We'll start with Conductrix, who have been with us from the very beginning. Thank you, Matt, Nate, Ezekiel, Ashley, and the entire team at Conductrix so much for supporting the TLC. We also want to thank our TLC newsletter sponsors, starting, of course, with Conductrix, Growth Book, Site Spec. Thank you all for providing your thought leadership to the community. We all really appreciate it. We do have room for one more thought leader newsletter sponsor if somebody wants to join. The community appreciates and engages with that thought leadership. So we'd love to have another thought leader newsletter sponsor. Beyond that, we want to thank Convert for sponsoring the amazing Conversations channel on the TLC Slack. It's a way for the community to get to know each other. Currently, right now, you have till the end of today to engage with the current Conversations question. It is asking, what do you still feel self-conscious about sharing in a community of experimentation peers? What do you do when you feel self-conscious about sharing something? And my personal question as the founder of the TLC community is what would help reduce that feeling? And this is actually, you can think of it as a way for me to get feedback so that I can make the community more engaging and helpful. And some people have reached out to me, like if you're not worried about winning money, but you just want to give me feedbacks on how I can make the community more engaging for you and how you could feel less of a lurker, like you've gotten so much out of learning in the community just by reading, but you still feel a little nervous about engaging and you want to give me direct feedback, you can do that. Just private message me. I'm really trying to make this community a warm and welcoming place for everybody, and I want you to feel comfortable sharing. That's why I asked this particular question. Please reach out. But I would love for you to feel comfortable enough to answer this particular question. That's why I asked it in the first place. So thank you again, Convert, for creating this channel. It means a lot to me. I've learned a lot from all of you, and please engage. Last but far from least, thank you, Eddie Aguilar, Blazing Growth, for sponsoring the TLC community. And if anybody else wants to be a sponsor of the TLC, we love doing it, and we love all the events and the t-shirts that everybody loves as part of that. Announcements and reminders. Hey, Experimentation Island is back. Registration is open. All-inclusive tickets are cheaper this year, starting at just $17.50. Tone and I want everybody to be able to come. And this year you can save when you bring others along because experimentation is a team sport. So agencies, contractors bring client or prospect, and you can both save $150 per room. In-house teams bring a colleague and save $500. Bring two colleagues and y'all save $900. So we really worked hard to make it as affordable as possible. Something we can do as part of the TLC being a nonprofit. So please join us. And if you were here at EI 2025, get the word out, let others know what they don't want to miss. So with that in mind, meet me, Marielle. It's hard to believe it's been a year since I met you. When I had the honor of helping select speakers for the very first Convert Women in Experimentation Summit, which is about to happen again. That event is gearing up for its second year in July, and you were an absolute standout from the start when we were picking out our speakers. You caught our attention not just with your sharp thinking and compelling topic, but with your joy, your energy, and your authenticity. And then I was lucky enough to meet you in person at the inaugural Experimentation Island, where I also learned that in addition to being a brilliant behavioral scientist, you had these amazing vocal talents. And I hope to see you back and get to hear you again in February. Just like that first Women in Experimentation Summit when I learned so much from you. I'm looking forward to learning some behavioral science from you today. So everyone get ready to be educated. I'm going to pass the, if I can stop sharing, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kelly, for having me. It's an honor to be presenting here today with everybody. So thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we can get started. Can everybody see my screen? Okay, very cool. Very nice. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about designing with invisible drivers, and I really want you all to come out with an understanding of what these invisible drivers are, specifically emotions and friction, and how they can help you develop a better customer experience for your users and your audience. So very excited to be here with you all today. I want to start off first with your help, and it's going to come in the form of a question. But first off, the checkout aisles are considered prime real estate. I mean, in fact, Americans spent close to $6 billion in 2020 on checkout purchases. So I want to get a sense from you on, maybe you come off of mute, but what could be happening in the checkout aisles that makes people more compelled to buy or more likely to buy? Right? Why is it considered a prime selling location? Maybe put it in the chat or come off mute, even better.
Candy.
Say that one more time.
Candy.
Candy, yes.
Already there.
Yes, okay. Especially if you have little ones, they'll want the candy. Okay.
Sure. Blame it on the kids.
Anybody else? I can't see
the impulse purchases, the low cost, things you think you might need.
And that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. So when you think about checkout aisles, you mentioned a few of them. So there's a lower price point, right? So oftentimes in the checkout aisle, you'll often see items that are 50 cents, $2 or $4, and they're typically lower price than the price of the other items in the store. And so by the time you get there, they seem more attractive. I mean, there's this concept in behavioral science called price anchoring, which is that you're typically influenced by the first number that you see. And so for me, for example, if I'm at the Sephora checkout aisle and I see a $15 mini lipstick, it seems a lot more attractive to me than the $70 foundation that they're selling, right? And so the lower price point is one of them. Then there's the depletion of your decision-making energy. I mean, at that point, you would have roamed a bunch of aisles, you would have compared a lot of options. And so by the time you get there, you're more susceptible to impulse buying, like you mentioned. On top of that, there's the last chance mentality. I mean, you could be in a rush, the people behind you could be in a rush. And so you don't have a lot of time to process the information, to ponder on a decision. And you're also thinking about the fact that, like, hey, I might actually need some gum, or I might actually need this particular item. I don't want to have to come back to the store again, right? So experiencing that urgency, experiencing that excitement makes it more likely that users are going to make impulse buying, are going to make spontaneous decisions. And retailers, they've recognized those emotions at this particular touch point. And what they've decided to do is to pair that with upselling opportunities. And so this really is going to be the topic of today and why I think that emotions are going to be good for business. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how emotions show up, when they show up, what that could mean for your brand, and why emotionally connected consumers are good for business. We're going to talk about how you can design with emotions in mind. And then finally, we'll wrap up with friction and also why that could be good for your business. So why is designing for emotion, why is that good for your business? Like, what are you set to get out of it? Why do you need to uncover folks' emotional needs? Well, there's a lot of studies out there that show that emotionally connected consumers are a lot more likely to be loyal and pay a premium for your products and your services. In fact, there was a study by the firm Motista. They worked with about 100 retailers across 100,000 customers for about 2 years. And what they found was that fully connected consumers, emotionally connected consumers, were twice as likely to spent twice as much as those who were only satisfied. And they spent an average of 5 years with those retailers compared to just 3 years for those who were satisfied. And on top of that, when you think about emotionally connected consumers, they'll definitely rate your brand higher compared to those who are just satisfied. So another reason why it's very important to understand those emotions and keep tabs on them. When I started with the checkout aisle example, what I wanted to show is how emotions can play a big role in decisions and behavior, but they're actually integral to decision making. In fact, we're actually hardwired to use emotions in our decision making processes. There's this neuroscientist called Damasio who said, "We are not thinking machines that feel. We are feeling machines that think." And it's because our decisions are informed by our emotional state. In fact, they help us assess situations, they help us evaluate scenarios pretty quickly so that we're able to respond. And on top of that, they can help activating some of our goals. So say, for example, you're looking to become better you're looking to jumpstart your fitness journey. Just starting is important because it can lead to feelings such as satisfaction, pride, accomplishment, like, yes, you started. And because of those good feelings, you're more likely to keep going. And then similarly, if you encounter setbacks or challenges, it's going to lead to feelings such as, frustration, shame, and sadness. And that could also hamper your productivity and your progress. So it's really important to be mindful and aware of what's going on with consumers at different points of their journey, and specifically in terms of what it is that they're trying to achieve. It's important too to then be proactive instead of reactive. Let's see. Okay. And so you've probably heard this a few times, like, hey, keep the emotions out of it, keep the emotions out of the decision. But if we did that, we would be living a life that is less than pleasant. Well, first of all, it would be really hard to connect with people. And Damasio, the neuroscientist, which I talked about before, showed that the amygdala, the part of the brain, which processes fear-based emotions, which also helps with memory processing, if that were damaged, we would be more likely to make poor financial decisions because we'd be less averse. We wouldn't necessarily process the risk and the dangers as somebody else would. And similarly, right, if you have a damaged amygdala and we show you pictures of injustices, a regular person, they might get angry and that might compel them towards action. But if that part of your brain is damaged, you might be left feeling indifferent, neutral, not really passionate about the topic, right? So emotion is integral and it's important, and it really helps with learning, rewards, and punishments. So now that I've hopefully sold you all on why it's very important to understand your consumers' emotional needs, let's talk about the different types of emotions, but specifically like how they show up. So you have integral emotions, which are feelings that are arising from the decision at hand. So pretty self-explanatory there. Then you have incidental emotions. So those could be emotions that you're carrying over from one situation to another. So for example, you have date night with your partner, but let's say you have a date night with your partner tonight, but then you had a terrible day at work. It's very likely that you're going to go to your rendezvous with feelings of frustration, right? That's going to show up on the date. And then you have anticipated feelings. So feelings that you're predicting are going to experience your future, right? So when we think about the checkout aisle example, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to regret not buying the gum. You want to avoid that feeling of regret. You want to avoid coming back to the store. And so that's shaping your current behavior of grabbing the gum right now. So we've talked about how like when emotions might show up, but how can we actually use that information? So on this slide, we're going to talk about emotions and their appraisal dimensions. And appraisal dimensions are really the lens through which people view a situation based on their emotions at the current time, right? So for example, in terms of dimensions, we have certainty, individual control, and others' responsibility. So certainty asks questions like, do I understand what's going on right now and what's going to happen next? When you think about individual control, think about, you in that situation saying, can I do anything to change this or to fix this? Do I have agency to change the outcome? And then finally, you have others' responsibility. So basically, whose fault is it? So when, let's say you're angry, you're literally going to ask, well, it's definitely not my fault. It's the other person's fault. They're to blame for us being in this situation. Fear, so that's for anger and others' responsibility. But when you're angry, you really feel like you know what's going on and you know what should happen. And you feel like you have agency, or at least you should have agency to change the outcome. Fear, on the other hand, you don't really feel like there's a lot of certainty, right? Because you don't even know what's going on. And then individual control, again, you feel a sense of helplessness. Pride is an interesting one because you feel a lot of certainty about what's happening. You feel like you have a lot of agency and able to influence the outcome. And technically, nobody else is responsible for the outcome but you, for the positive outcome but you. So what does that look like in action, right? Let's dive into specific examples of what that could look like. So let's look at a scenario where, a customer is charged twice for a ride sharing trip. And, they're very certain that this is wrong, that this is a mistake. They believe it's unfair, so it needs to be changed as soon as possible. They also think in terms of individual control that if they just send one email, that the issue should be fixed. I mean, I shouldn't have to talk to 15 people, which is, I will say, happening to me right now. I've been emailing at least 10 people just to try to get a refund. That should not happen. And of course, others are responsible for this. The company messed up. So when we're thinking about designing a solution, think about how you can meet people where they're at. How can you appease them and take the anger away? Right? So from a certainty perspective, try to clarify the facts so that users can predict the outcome or confirm the outcome, right? So in this case, it would be like acknowledging, yes, your card was charged twice, and you're going to get your refund by 11 a.m. tomorrow. Be very specific. When you're angry, you want a lot of control as well. You believe you should have a lot of control and that you have a lot of control. So then empower the consumer to solve the problem themselves. So in this case, maybe it's a button where it says request refund in one tap. And then finally, of course, the company messed up. So acknowledge the mistake, the frustration, own up to it. Let's look at a fear scenario now. So it's a retail investor, opens their brokerage account on a Monday. They're looking to trade, and then they see a red banner. It's like, hey, your account's been temporarily restricted for compliance review, and trading is disabled until the review is complete. Well, first of all, what's going to happen to my money? You have zero certainty. You don't really know what's going on. Like, can I trade at some point? What's going to happen to my money? And then number two, around individual control, you feel kind of helpless because, well, you don't even have enough clarity around the situation. You don't even know how you got there to begin with. You feel like there isn't really much that you can do. And so when we think about designing solutions to address these specific dimensions, again, you want to reduce the ambiguity and get them into clarity and predictability. People don't like feeling uncertain. People don't like having a sense of control. And when they're in fear, they're lingering in uncertainty. They're lingering in helplessness. So you want to take them out of that, right? And reduce the ambiguity, clarify things, show specific. By the way, your account was triggered because of an ID mismatch. It's going to take 2 hours for us to review. Oh, and also here's a FAQ link for you to figure out what's happening, what typically happens during a compliance review. And then give them back a sense of control. Like, actually, how about this? Here's what you can do to help us, right? Provide a, document upload button for people to upload their passport photos. Even let them know, like, hey, we actually have somebody waiting to talk to you in 5 minutes, right? And so those are some of the things that you can do to meet people where they are. And if it's fearful, if it's fear, take them away from the fear. Now, I want to give you another example, specifically from a brand that you all might be very familiar with, and specifically how Betty Crocker took emotions into consideration to improve their sales. So Betty Crocker, if some of you are not familiar with it, but they have a very strong value proposition, which is their instant mix. So basically, all you need is water, you mix it with the powder that they give you, and boom, you have a beautiful cake. And so for people that are busy, that's a very nice, that should be, if anything, a very compelling proposition. It should be a winner. But when they first came out with this product back in the 1950s, it was not doing as well as they expected. People weren't buying as much of it. And so the founders brought in psychologists, and these psychologists were like, okay, we need to talk to the housewives who were at the time the target audience. They're like, we need to talk to them, figure out what's going on. So they ran focus groups. They did one-on-one interviews, and a lot of the themes that came out were that the women felt guilty. They felt bad. Like, people think they're out here spending hours baking the cake, but all they did was add water. And so it wasn't necessarily a rewarding experience because they didn't feel like they had a lot of agency in the outcome, that they influenced the outcome. And so what they did was they revised the product. They didn't necessarily change the marketing of it, but they changed the product. They were like, okay, fine. You want to feel like you have a more of an influence on the outcome? Fine, you can add an egg. Here's an egg now. So now to create the cake, you'll add water and an egg, which creates a lot more effort, but creates a lot more meaning as well. Now it's something that people can feel proud of. And that's what was missing from the initial product construct. So it speaks very well to a behavioral science concept called the IKEA effect, which is the tendency to overvalue things that we created or that we assembled ourselves. Right. And so in this case, the audience felt like, the consumers felt like they, whisking the egg and adding the water was a lot more rewarding than just the water. And so that's something that they could be proud of. So how do you know which emotions to design for? Well, you can do a lot of in-depth qualitative research. So we're talking about observational interviews, meeting the customers where they're at, looking at how they're engaging with your product. That's expensive though, but that would be a great way to find out what emotions people are looking to feel, but also what they're feeling at every step of the way. You can do screen share exercises, focus groups are great for that, surveys as well. And definitely review complaints. Look at the reviews because those are gold mines. People are literally going to tell you what they're feeling. And then you put it all together in the customer journey map. And a customer journey map is a visual representation of the customer's journey, the customer's experience with your product. And with that, once you add all of these insights, you'll be able to identify and quantify the outcome of a poor touch point. Now, let's look at a customer journey map for a traveler, for example. And we know that a customer's experience is influenced by all of the touch points that they have with your company. And it's great because it allows you to see where things can go well and where things can go wrong. So if you think about, a traveler's path, there's the pre-trip planning phase where they're doing a lot of research, all the way to, at the time where they're waiting for the trip to happen, so pre-trip, and then there's the post-trip. And typically, when we do customer journey maps, a lot of times you'll add customer activities. So what types of research are they doing? What are they booking? You'll add the different channels that they're doing these things in, the KPI. So perhaps like, what's the conversion rate from pre-trip planning to booking, right? What could be causing the fallouts? And so it's great for identifying pain points, but I think a lot of times what we don't do is add the emotional aspect, right? That's often forgotten. But if we were adding emotions, which you should add emotions, here are some of the questions that you would ask at these different stages. First, you would ask at the booking stage, like, what emotion are they hoping to feel? Right? Is it trust? Is there like trust that's lacking? Do they need us to highlight specific features? Do they need more reviews of people who have used the product? Right? What about the pre-trip stage? What emotion does this touch point bring up? Because if you did design for, and if you did include the emotional aspect, you would realize, and maybe you'd stumble upon research that shows that dopamine, and dopamine is a hormone and neurotransmitter, and it's released when you experience something very pleasurable, something very rewarding, exciting, motivating. So dopamine, you'd realize that dopamine is often released before we do the thing that we're so excited to do, before you jump off a cliff, before you skydive. And in this case, before the trip, there's a lot of research that shows that people get very excited before the trip. Like the dopamine is higher before the trip than during the trip. So we're more satisfied before we get what we want. So in this case, you would ask, okay, well, knowing that, how can we generate excitement at this time? How can we make this time memorable? So let's zoom out. Think about all of the unboxing videos that you see for the Apple phones, for people's new Chanel purses, for the new Lego set. These social media campaigns are geared to create excitement before you get the actual thing. And it's one of the reasons why, for example, the Facebook like button, it was so innovative because it made people feel good. It made people feel seen, made people feel validated. And it's the same reason why YouTube is now hiding the dislike count. So you could see, you post a video, you can see how many people like it, right? I can see how many people like it, but nobody else can see how many people dislike my video. And there's a reason why. It's because YouTube's entire business model is to get people to post more so that they can get advertisers on the platform. But if people aren't posting because people feel ashamed that, wow, everybody else can see how badly I posted, people are less likely to post, and they don't want that. They want you to keep posting. So we'll keep our dirty laundry to ourselves. We won't show it to everybody else. So when you're thinking about touch points and designing emotionally, it's very crucial to think about, well, what are the business goals, but also how can you pair that with moments and features that elevate the experience for the user? So I just talked about emotions and how they're invisible drivers, and friction is also an invisible driver, right? It can be an invisible driver, and it shapes customer behavior. And when you think about it in the context of the customer experience, like it's in the friction comes about because you're thinking about, okay, well, how can I get folks to do something? How do I get them to engage with the product, to buy this service? And there's this great framework out there by Roger Dooley that can help you think about habit formation and also product adoption, right? When you think about a behavior, there's a certain amount of nudge that's important, right? How do I get folks' attention, right? And how does that measure up against the customer's initial motivation? But also maybe I can provide some additional motivation, right? And so as we're thinking about getting the customer down the line, friction comes in because whether it's real or perceived, it stops the momentum that you were trying to create. And so think of momentum as anything that will provide that extra motivation, push, or nudge. And the opposite of that is friction. So I remember I was listening to the No Hacks podcast that's run by Sunny, and I stumbled upon this concept of pyramid of friction. And I was like, wow, that's a really cool way to think about it. And so friction can take a lot of different shapes. And the most obvious one is is physical friction, usability friction. It's more obvious. It's anything that prevents folks from carrying a task. It could be a physical challenge, right? And then you have the cognitive friction, anything that's difficult to understand, right? If they don't understand something, they probably will stop engaging with it. And then there's emotional friction, right? And that could be the discomfort that a customer feels during interaction with your brand. That could be anxiety, stress. And when you think about it, friction, the goalpost for friction is always changing, but it's very important for customers, for consumers, not for consumers. It's very important for companies to be aware of that. So think about when Amazon came out with the 2-day shipping, right? At the time, it felt like, wow, like a surprise, something exciting. We hadn't seen that before. Like I can get anything delivered in 2 days. Like that's pretty cool. But couple years down the line, I mean, that's become kind of standard. Like if you're not offering 2-day shipping, like what are you doing? What are you doing? Right? So from a consumer's perspective, anything longer than 2 days may cause some psychological, some emotional discomfort. And it's something that companies have to grapple with. Now, you may not be able to solve for that, but you have to be aware of that. Now, friction typically gets a bad rep. There's a bad connotation with friction and stuff, but sometimes that's good. Sometimes friction is good. And, for example, it's good if you want to protect the customer, right? The amount of times I've had to find a password that's 20 characters long. Oh my God, like uppercase, lowercase, a bunch of other characters. Like I cannot be bothered, to be honest. But nobody wants to get hacked. Nobody wants to get hacked. The company doesn't want to get hacked. Nobody wants that headache, right? So let's avoid that. So cybersecurity is important. So let's make sure you get the 20 character long password down right. And then friction could be good because it can improve the perceived quality and trust of your product. So let's assume, you've been really excited to go to this restaurant. It's Michelin rated, right? There's this amazing chef that's cooking up amazing meals. So then you get there, you place, you have a glass of wine, you place your order, and then literally 2 minutes later, your food's here. Like, come on. You're probably going to think, wait, is this fresh? I don't know. It might not be as fresh as you thought. And so then you start questioning, well, why is this Michelin star? Like, I don't know if this company should be as reputable as they are. Right. So then at that point, you would think about, okay, well, how can I add more time to the cooking process so that people don't think I'm just reheating food? So, we're wrapping up. And so I want to talk about a few takeaways for us today. So one of the main takeaways is that invest in designing and predicting and thinking about how you can connect emotionally with your consumers because they're more valuable to you that way. They'll be more loyal. They'll be more likely to pay a premium. And then pay attention to the invisible so you can be more proactive and not reactive. So thank you for today.
Yay, awesome. There's a lot of chatter, but not questions yet. Which means people got a lot out of your talk. It was lovely. Hold on. Yes, lots of people enjoyed it. So as people are chattering, reminder, if you all have questions, let me know. But I enjoyed the talk quite a bit. One of the things that stood out to me was the conversation about the dopamine that you get from doing stuff. And that was one of the conversations that when I was in school that we talked a lot about, and there was a whole bunch of chatter about that. So anyway, as you all, if anybody has questions, let me know, but I'm going to pull up the next in line and let you all know what's coming next. If anybody has questions, let me know. Coming up next, new rules of KPIs, performance measurements that will make you take action with John Lovett. That's coming July 18th. And then don't leave emotion behind, the key to scalable growth and more conversions in an AI obsessed world with Talia Wolf, August 8th. And then Real Talk about Excellence in Analytics with June Dershowitz, August 22nd. And just announced, and the don't go look on the website yet because I still need to fix it, but another live event, the TLC Problem Lab in London, will be a live UX research event. So we're going to bring with a real client. We're going to bring a problem research focus problem statement to Creative CX's location, and we'll bring the research and then a small group of people. So it's limited seating, but you all can register now. If you're in the London area and would like to go, you can go ahead and RSVP. And Wednesday, August 27th from 6 to 8:30 p.m. in London. And we'll present the research that we did for this particular business. We'll share the problem statement, and then we'll break it into small groups. And you all will be able to help find solutions related to that problem statement. So it's the TLC Problem Lab powered by Creative CX. So if anybody wants to learn more about that, if you're in the London area, reach out, or I'll share the link soon so that you can register for that. And then we have more stuff coming soon. So anyway, do we have any questions about behavioral science with LA?
Somebody did say that they can't believe lipsticks are $15. Yeah. Well, I think now some are $25. So.
Oh yeah, that's nothing. Makeup is so expensive. Are you kidding me? Is that no, not 75. There is makeup that's 70.
Oh no, so foundation is $75. Yeah, easily.
Yeah.
Easily. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like if I see a $15 lipstick, I'm like, okay, that seems reasonable.
Yeah. Lipstick 15. Foundation 75.
Yes, it does depend on how long it lasts. Well, they want them to last very long anyway.
Per day cost. Well, I mean, it lasts you for years. You use it like
the foundation. Well, I bought one the other day, and I think by next, and I give it 2 months tops, another 2 months, so 3-month usage.
3 months of usage for $75.
I'm not necessarily. I don't wear foundation every day, so I think that I think they want you to have long-lasting products.
I don't wear makeup, so I don't have to spend money on it. So yay, I save money.
Save a lot of money. You're saving a lot.
Yes, Corey, great point. Good behavioral economics topic, the pink tax. That would be a fantastic behavioral economics topic.
I fall for it every time, so it works.
It does work. Yeah, my last, I just got back 2 weeks ago from London with my husband, and on our way there, one of our connecting flights was delayed, so we had to switch to a different flight. And of course, we made it, but our bags didn't. So our first day in London, we got to go shopping to all the best drugstores and whatnot to buy everything. And so one of our friends in London, Mark, took us to Boots, the drugstore, and to buy everything. And one of the things I had to buy was a razor. And so my husband goes over to the women's razors, and I'm like, no, I am not going to pay the pink tax. And he's like, what's the pink tax? And so I got to give a behavioral economics lecture to my husband right there in, the Boots pharmacy to explain the pink tax. It was awesome. And it was really cool because I was there with Mark Pybus of Creative CX, And he was like, you don't know the pink tax? And my husband had no idea. So he, and so we showed him, we were like, here's the cost of the pink razor and here's the cost of the men's razors. And he was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And then the same
I
thing,
do
by the
think
way,
they work better. The men's razors work better than
they
the
totally do. And so we also looked at like the aftershave for the men's, the women's, like all of it is more expensive for the women's. So I got a bunch of like very masculine smelling everything for the 2 days while I waited for our bags to arrive. Anyway, I did get a Plowman sandwich. It was wonderful. Cheddar Plowmans. It was wonderful.
guys you missed out. Yeah.
Gershoff, I always buy women's razors. They're cheaper at HEBs. Really? Well, we didn't have an HEBs in London, but that's good to know. And I don't have an HEBs in Missouri. Well, you can send me one from Austin. All right. Good to know. If I need that. Okay. So I need to go to, well, I'm planning a trip to Austin for the problem lab that I just told you about that we're holding August 27th in London. We will be holding with My Lemon Green coming soon, probably in October. So that'll be in Austin. So then I'll come down to HEB and get a pink razor from HEB. Sounds like a great way to spend my time in Austin.
Load up on shavers.
Yeah. All right. Well, I hope you all have a lovely, amazing weekend. And thank you so much, Lena Ariel. It was amazing as always. And if anybody has questions, you can put them on the TLC calls channel. And otherwise, just send a bunch of props because wonderful as always.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Kelly. And thank you everybody for showing up. Really appreciate it.
And I'm so sorry about the link. For those of you who are watching this recording later, because you couldn't find the link, mea culpa. Bye all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a great
you.
weekend.